Hi everyone, today we're going to be discussing the technology industry, and we are fortunate enough to be joined by Joyce Wong, who is the Head of Student Engagement for Niesh. Niesh is New Zealand's largest student platform. Joyce primarily organises Niesh events, including professional development workshops, conferences and bespoke marketing campaigns. Fun fact about Joyce is that she loves to document her life, and whether it's vlogging, Facebook live streaming or YouTube, she's done it all. Thanks for joining us today, Joyce.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question that we always start with is, what exactly do you do?
So it's quite a large amount of stuff that I do, just because working in a startup, you have to do everything. So like you explained before, I organize most of the events for Niesh, and because we work in the student market space, we have to do a lot of engagement. So that's like face-to-face marketing, basically. Other stuff that I do, I work with a lot of big companies like ASB, 2 Degrees, and I work directly with them to basically become their student consultant so that they can understand the student market a little bit more, and I also help represent their brand at events as well.
Cool, so your job is very unconventional.
Mm-hmm.
So could you explain what a typical day for you is on the job?
So, let's begin with the beginning of the day, because I never wanted to work in a Big Four just because of the fact that I'm not a very organized person. I'm more of a digital nomad kind of person. So I wake up in the morning, I probably woke up really late, so I've only got 10 minutes to head out of the door. I rush to work, which is all the way in the North Shore, and I live in Central, which is really bad. And then usually we have our team meetings in the morning. So we will start off with our team meetings, and then I will head into my day-to-day life, which is usually doing a lot of event planning, doing a lot of organizing, calling a lot of people, doing catering, and then also organizing venues. When it's not the peak period of my job, as in not the beginning of semester, then I will be in the office, or I'll be going out to negotiate new contracts for the next year. But during the busy periods, I'm usually at the universities. So usually I'm for full days, I'm just out at venues organizing events. That's basically what I do.
And what other similar jobs are there out there, maybe that people actually could think of that would be in your normal Seek kind of job search?
So if you're looking for a job like mine, I guess one thing would be an event planner would probably be most similar. Otherwise, you're probably looking at a business development manager. So that would be with companies that are interested in working with students, or their market is students. Their business development manager will usually, run the campaigns, do the engagement side, negotiate contracts and proposals with other companies as well. So that's probably the most similar job that I can think of.
And you don't necessarily need a university degree?
No, for sure not. In my field, probably not. This is a fun fact, I guess, but out of Niesh, I think only 2 of us have graduated. So we have 8 team members currently, and 6 of them don't have degrees. So for our job, you don't really need a degree necessarily. You just really need to understand the market space, which is for students for us.
And you talked about working with ASB and 2 Degrees. What are some of the coolest opportunities you've had come out of your job?
Okay. So I'm just thinking about what cool opportunities. I guess something that's unique about Niesh is because we're sort of the student experts. We do get to run a lot of the campaigns for the big companies. So ASB, 2 Degrees, MIOB. We work with those companies, and it's cool because we get to actually go to their office spaces and work there. So we don't always have to be stuck in the office. We can go out and work with them and their teams, which is quite unique because we're a very flexible organization, versus if we go there, then we have to kind of abide by their, corporate structures. So that's kind of a cool opportunity, because then I get a taste of the corporate life as well as, the startup life.
And so now we're just going to break up our questions with a fun round. So you said that you had a uni degree and that was in business. So what role would you be in, or what job would you be in if you weren't working for Niesh?
So I did a business and arts degree. So in my arts degree, I did film and also politics. And then in my business degree, I did marketing and management. if I was not doing Niesh, I think I would be working at a marketing firm, or I would probably do something related to traveling. So because I'm an avid traveler, I really wanted to actually work for the BBC doing like production for films and documentaries. So that's sort of what I wanted to do originally, but then now I'm stuck here. Yeah, not stuck, but yeah.
So, in terms of Niesh, it's a startup and it hasn't been going for too long, but it's already it's New Zealand's biggest student platform. So, what is it like working in a startup?
Ooh. So I've been with the company since almost the very beginning. It's really, really tough. Like, I'm not gonna lie, you know, like I'm sure the people who are listening are students as well. If you're willing to work at a startup, I think that the biggest quality that you need to have is the ability to actually sacrifice. So working at a startup is not a safe job. Like, you're not going to have stability, particularly financial wise. Like, you're never going, well, you might in the future, but I guess it's more about the reward. So you're thinking about the impact that you're going to make, and you're thinking about the growth and development that you're going to have, because at a startup, you're going to have to do everything, and there's no one to guide you. There's no one to hold your hand. You have to do everything yourself. So you're going to grow at a rate that is a lot faster than someone who's going to go through the normal structures of going through corporate. So like, if you just go to university and then you go get a grad job, your learning pace is going to be a lot slower than at a startup. Yeah, that's like.
And you talked about working in MYOB and 2 Degrees in their office spaces, but you also said you knew you didn't want to go into like a big four kind of job. So what do you think are the benefits of working for a startup compared to working in like that corporate space?
Definitely in a startup, you do have a lot more say. So for me, the reason that I don't like, I don't prefer working at a corporate is just because of the bureaucracy and like structures that are in place. Obviously, they're in place for a reason, because otherwise, like, you know, if you make a mistake, there's someone to, you know, help you out of that situation. But for startups, you do really get to direct like where you want the company to go. I mean, even when I was in second year of university, a lot of my opinions did matter. It had like a say, and it did direct the future of the company, and that's what I like. It's almost like being your own boss, except like, you know, I'm not the boss. But it gives you that kind of feeling and that power over the company, which I think I really enjoy.
And it's quite hard to get into a startup. So you said that you were pretty much with Niesh from the beginning. So is that how you got into your job?
Yes, definitely. So it's a kind of a weird story, but basically the reason that I found out about Niesh was because they came and lecture bashed at my Accounting 101 lecture, and they basically said, oh, if you want to get some free food, come follow us after the lecture. And then I became actually like a customer of Niesh, because at the time we had a lounge near the university in Auckland, and I went to the lounge. That was my hangout spot with my friends, and then I watched their live streams, and that's sort of what got me into it. At the time, Facebook live streaming had just launched, and they did a live stream about legalizing marijuana, and so I was like, wow, like nobody is talking about this. And me at the time, like really into news and media, I was like, oh, I have to join this company. So I had to actually submit my CV twice, because they had no resources to hire me. I mean, their bank account had $30 in it, I'm pretty sure. So I had to submit my CV twice, and then I said, I'm willing to work for free. And for the first year of my internship as such, I actually worked at no cost. So my first paycheck was only like $23. Yeah. And that's how I got into my role. And then from there, I just worked multiple jobs in order to stay with Niesh, and then I like graduated and became full-time. So that's how I got into my job.
And so for a lot of the viewers and listeners who are interested in getting into a startup, obviously your role is quite unconventional. It's not something that you just see advertised, and some roles in startups are based on the person once they get into the role. So what is your advice for someone who is interested in kind of a unconventional job like this and getting into it?
I think you just need to be really aware of the industry and the startup space. So being really active and engaged, going to events, going to Startup Weekend that I know that you're a part of. There's other stuff like at the universities, they offer a lot of like innovation and entrepreneurship programs. Going to speaker series can really get you connected with the startup space. And I think, as you mentioned before, like most roles in startups are not advertised. They create the role based on the value that you're bringing to the company. So you just need to show them that, wow, like I'm worth a lot, like I have a lot of value to bring, and they will create a role for you. And it's sort of like taking a leap of faith and just, sending out your CV or like being like, oh, I'm really interested in working for your company. I have a lot of passion for this. And usually they will consider you. They will actually like talk to you and maybe interview you to see whether you might be a suitable person for their company.
So another fun round that we're going to do is, what was the worst career advice you've ever been given when working out what to do?
So it's kind of weird because in high school, like, I actually really wanted to become a lawyer. I studied first year law, and the reason that I chose law was because I was completely unaware of any unconventional jobs. I mean, my job didn't really exist when I was in high school. Like, apps were still not really a thing in terms of the New Zealand market. So like, it's very interesting, like in high school you're like, okay, I take these subjects and these subjects should lead to this degree, and this degree is going to lead to this job. I think that's the, not worst piece of career advice, but it was the path that I was pushed to go towards. And I think I didn't necessarily go towards that path because afterwards I realized, wow, there's actually a wider and bigger world out there than, high school and like the degrees and everything.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're trying to do at Starter, is show people what you can do, and that it's not just degree job, stay in that job for the rest of your life kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though, because like the younger generation nowadays, their school system is also quite different. They're a lot more aware of like what's available out there. Like, a lot of people want to become influencers, like on Instagram, and that's a very unconventional job. So I guess like the younger generations these days are more aware of what's out there.
And so that kind of does tail into the next question. So when you were in high school, was it hard for you to decide what you were going to do? And if so, what is your advice to get out of that kind of rut?
That's a difficult question. I have to think about it for a little bit. I think it wasn't necessarily hard to decide what I wanted to do. It was hard to decide what degree I wanted to go into. Because I think stability is a big thing that parents push on children. They want you to be in a more financially stable job. So choosing the degree based on like my parents' expectation was probably the hardest part. So I think that my advice would be to actually follow your passions. So figure out what you're really, really good at, and make sure that you're probably like the best in whatever you're good at. Making sure that you're like the best in your field makes you unique from other people. So no matter what industry you go into, that quality will help you excel. And that's like sort of, I guess, the feedback that I would give looking back.
That's really good advice. And I think also that thing about, for you, it was university was the thing that you were going to do. You knew you were going to go to university. It was just what degree. And I was the same. But I think for a lot of people, university is just an option, and there's other things that guidance counsellors and career counsellors don't even talk about because they want you to go to university.
It's very dependent on sort of your financial situation and what kind of school you go to as well. This is sort of not a very well-known fact, but 70% of jobs in New Zealand are actually hired through connections. So it's not actually hired by your degree or like how well you did at school. It's actually by who you know. So I think that for a lot of high school students, like, they're not aware of this. But you can't really do anything about that until you graduate.
And you should still study hard and stay in school.
Yeah, you should stay in school. You should stay in school. I'm not pushing that you shouldn't stay in school. But of course, if you want to go down the road, the road of not going to university, that's totally okay as well. So many people don't go to university these days, and they go into apprenticeships and stuff like that, which is really awesome too. So.
And so just another fun question is maybe what was one of your most embarrassing moments in high school?
Oh my god. I saw this question. I had to message my friend and ask her, oh, what was something embarrassing that I did in high school? And honestly, it's been like 5 years. Like, it's really hard to remember. But I guess one embarrassing thing that I did was actually when I was in high school, I was like a dancer. And so in one of my dance shows, for some reason, I started having a nosebleed, like in the middle of my performance. And it was worse. It was my solo. So I was wearing a white dress and there was blood dripping off my nose. I had to like pretend that I was like, I don't know, really emotional and like brushing my arm across my face to pretend that, oh yeah, I was really deep into it, but I was just trying to like stop my nose from bleeding. And so I had to run off stage. I guess that's the embarrassing thing that I did.
So in your job, what kind of skills and like qualifications do you think someone would need if they were interested in?
Great communication skills, being able to understand a whole range of different people. Within university, you have students who are from New Zealand, but there's also a lot of international students. You have to have a lot of patience to understand them and empathize with what they're going through, because unless you are able to communicate effectively with your market, you can't actually understand their problems and create solutions for them. I think the second thing is to be able to understand a whole range of different concepts. So I think that ties in with upskilling yourself a lot. So majority of over half of my company is actually all software engineers, and I didn't come up with a software engineer background. I have no idea about coding, can't even, I think it's just ones and zeros, that's what I think. But being able to try upskill yourself so that you can understand what they're trying to tell you is a really important thing. And I think the third thing would be, how do I phrase this? Like being able to move fast and fail fast. That would be one of our company policies, is because in a startup, you're going to fail a lot. You're going to actually do a lot of stuff and you're like, why did I do that? That's so dumb. But you have to be able to move on from that and learn from your failures, and I think that's another quality that you have to have.
And because your role is engaging students and being so customer facing, what is that like? And also, what is it like being in a role that's so fluid with no real structure, I guess?
So being in a role that you're a lot of the time customer facing, I guess you as yourself is you have to think of it like this, I'm representing my company's brand, and if I communicate, if I'm in a bad mood, I can't be in a bad mood. It's almost like being a YouTuber. You always have to have this ideal life. And for me, when I'm facing students, I always have to be quite positive, and I have to embody the whole I'm a mate. I'm your friend, and I'm going to be your friend, and I'm going to help you. And that's sort of the brand image that I have to portray. It's quite, I guess, energy consuming, because you're talking to students maybe for 8 hours a day. But then obviously I have rest periods, so that's okay. But I think it's also really rewarding because you get to talk to so many people that come from different backgrounds, and not everyone gets to do that in their job. Some people just face a computer the whole day, so I'm really thankful for that part of my job. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Just being in such a fluid kind of job environment.
So you have to be okay with being in the unknown. My job actually has changed probably about 5 times. I only recently became head of student engagement. Previously, I was lead content producer, because at the time our company was doing something different. So we weren't doing something completely different, but we had a different product. So my role obviously will change according to what our company direction is going towards. So you have to be okay with actually I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try something new anyways. That's sort of the mindset that you have to have.
And our last fun question before we finish is, what makes you weird?
What makes me weird? Oh my gosh. I guess what makes me weird. Okay, yes, I did think of this prior. So, what makes me weird is I'm really like in my own headspace. Like a lot of the times, I'm actually in my own world. A lot of people might say this, but I think I'm actually that. Like I'm actually in my own world. Like majority of the time, I am thinking of so many. I'm a very creative person, so for me, I'm always like thinking of new things. And so when someone's talking to me, I might not actually be like very in my own world thinking about something completely different, and then suddenly I'd just be like, oh, what about if we did this? But they might be talking about, you know, making a sandwich or something. So that's sort of what makes me weird.
But also creative.
Yes, well, also creative. It's good for my job, yeah.
And so what is your favourite part of your job?
My favourite part of my job? Definitely making a difference in students and their lives. For me, like the reason that I wanted to do law was because I thought that I would be able to make a difference in people's lives. Like I would be able to actually create a tangible difference. And when I was going through university, I even thought about like going to, you know, third world countries and developing communities over there. That was actually one of the career pathways that I thought I was going to go down. I didn't end up doing that because I found Niesh. And I think the most rewarding thing is definitely like, I can literally count like what difference I'm making, you know, through Niesh. Like just this year, I think I held a 3-day boot camp for 30 students. And I was able to say, you know, after the 3 days, wow, like actually 3 students found a job straight away after the boot camp. I think that's the most rewarding part, is actually seeing a tangible difference in people's lives.
And so then what would be some of the harder parts or the least exciting parts of your job?
Oh, the least exciting part? No, nothing is not exciting. I think something that's hard about my job is dealing with, I guess, being taken seriously. Actually, because I'm 22, I started my job when I was 19. So when you're 19 years old and you have to go to like a business meeting with, you know, like a big company, it's quite hard to be like, yes, actually I'm right, you're wrong. Like actually having confidence in doing that. And even to this day, I think I struggle a lot because I'm dealing with probably like 40 to 50 year olds when I'm talking to businesses. So it's quite hard for you to actually know your worth. I think that's the hardest thing about being young, is actually not being certain of yourself and having the confidence to say, yes, I think I'm right, you know, like I think this is the direction that you need to take. And so that's probably being able to constantly work on that is probably the hardest part about my job.
I think we all suffer from imposter syndrome at some point. Yeah.
Definitely.
So the last question that we always leave our listeners and viewers with is, what is one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self who was still trying to work out what they were doing?
One piece of advice is definitely follow your passions. It seems so generic, but if you like to do something, and it doesn't matter why you like it, whether it's because you like the people or you like what you're doing, like, or maybe you like coding, that's what you like doing, just go ahead and follow that. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Don't worry that this other person just got like an internship for the summer. Like, just don't worry about that. Just do your own thing, you know, follow your own path, go down your own stream, because you know, you never know where that's going to lead. And like the biggest thing and most important thing about finding a job is actually liking your job. If you don't like your job, don't do it. That's the advice that I would give.
Awesome. Thank you, Joyce, and thank you for talking with us today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.